Johnny Mac and Jody Mac here with you in Birds 365. Thanks for tuning in, Eagles fans. It is that time. Eagles report to the NovaCare Complex today and get their first practice underway tomorrow. John McMullen will be there, as will our next guest. You should recognize him now because I'm told it's his 9th appearance here on Bird 365, our most frequent flyer, Ed Kracz of Sports Illustrated. And I ask you the question that Hank Williams Jr. asks all the time as well. Are you ready for some football?
Yeah, I'm ready, man. I'm all geared up. Was on vacation last week at the Jersey Shore. So, my batteries are recharged. I'm ready to go. I'm waiting to hear when we can actually go here. We're kind of in the dark.
Yeah, I don't think the Eagles are ready to go, but that's some inside nonsense. But when we do get there, hopefully, and the Eagles get around to it, what are you most interested in seeing? I think the most obvious competition is Andre Dillard versus Jordan Mailata at left tackle. But there is some interesting give and take. I know that third wide receiver position is one I'm going to be focused on. What are you making when you hit the grass at the NovaCare Complex? What do you want to see first?
Well, besides
me.
Yeah, right. I want to see Hurts. Obviously, he's the most obvious answer. Jalen Hurts, how consistent he can be running this offense. In the spring work we saw, he looked a little inconsistent, I thought, at times with his throwing and his completion percentage. So obviously he's the big choice, right? Number one, must watch at camp. I'm kind of interested, after the Eagles signed Steven Nelson, giving them their cornerback too, and allowing Avonte Maddox to play in the slot, which is more of a comfortable fit for him. But I'm wondering if Maddox is going to stay in the slot, and they won't try to make him a free safety, especially with Rodney McLeod's rehab from an ACL still kind of up in the air. I'm not sure he's going to be ready week one. So I'm kind of wondering if that slot position, at least early on, is going to be Josiah Scott, who they acquired in a trade. They gave up a 6th-round pick for him. He's kind of flying under the radar, in my opinion. And then you have Zach McPherson, the 4th-round pick, who a lot of people feel the slot could be his best position going forward. So, I'm interested to see what happens at that slot position now that CB2 has been taken care of. Will it be Maddox, or will they put Maddox at safety and move Josiah Scott, who has a similar skill set to Maddox, in the slot and let Zach McPherson compete with him there? So, that might be beyond the obvious a little bit. And maybe it's just my way of thinking after seeing Maddox get some reps at safety during the spring work. But that's something that I'll be keeping an eye on as well, other than the obvious. Devontae Smith, can't wait to see how he does. Jalen Reagor, can he make the jump from year one to year two? So there's certainly no shortage of storylines.
No disrespect to my colleagues here, Mr. McMullen and Mr. Kracz, but you're both wrong. The most interesting development situation with the Philadelphia Eagles, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, is Zach Ertz. And I'll explain why. Mailata versus Dillard. If Howie Roseman should come down and sidle up next to Jeff Stoutland and attempt to influence how Jeff looks at the left tackle position, you know what Jeff will say? Howie, don't you have a phone call to take? Just get off the field. He's not going to be afraid to tell Howie Roseman, I'll decide how the left tackle position is going. If Howie sidles up next to Nick Sirianni and says, Nick, how many plays do you think you're going to be in? 12, 11? Well, it'll be yes, sir. No, sir. Whatever you suggest, sir. I will certainly take under advisement, sir, as a first-time head coach. How Zach Ertz is usually going to be decided by a whole bunch of people, not the left tackle position. The defensive position, who's going to be at the slot, who's going to be at safety. That's a little bit more interesting with Gannon. I'll give you that, but I think it'll purely be Gannon's call because there is so many varying and different opinions on Zach Ertz and how much the Eagles are going to use 2 tight end sets. I think that's the most interesting thing in camp.
Yeah, it's weird with Ertz. I mean, I think we've been conditioned all off season, ever since we saw them after their final game in January, him and Kelsey and Wentz gathered at the the 50-yard line, looked like they were saying goodbye. So I think we've all been conditioned that Zach Ertz isn't going to be part of this team. And I know Howard Eskin came out and reported what he reported, that Zach has moved past these issues. I've been told otherwise, by a pretty good source that's pretty close to Zach Ertz, that no, these issues have not been moved past. He still very much wants out of Philadelphia. So it's interesting that he'll report, and knowing Ertz being the consummate pro that he is, it'll be interesting to see his body language when he's out on that field. Like you said, will he be sidling up to, the left tackles or Roseman and whatever, but it's going to be interesting to see his body language and how he attacks camp. And certainly if he gets injured early in camp, that's going to put a whole, different spin on what his future is going to look like too. So you're right, Jody. I mean, Zach Ertz is somebody that needs to be paid attention to here without question. And maybe he is close to the top of that list of players to watch. It just seems that we're conditioned to think that he's not going to be here. And I still don't think he's going to be here, but it's absolutely something that needs to be watched early on in camp.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point. Well, one, Ed, he's not going to be sidling up to Howie Roseman. I'm going to make that prediction right here. But, I think it was Andrew Brandt was on our show, and he said, remember, I think Howard was putting too much into the fact that Zach was working out at the facility, because you can't have contact with the coaches and the personnel. You can't talk football. So he's just going in there to get his strength work done, his conditioning work done, and leaving, and nobody's bothering him. He's got to show up because of the fines. The fines can't be waived. So Andrew said maybe they have him show up and not practice, so he's not fined. But you bring up, if he gets hurt, any potential trade is out the window. People talk about injuries elsewhere. What if there's an injury in Buffalo or Indianapolis or Jacksonville, on and on and on. You bring up a good point. What if Zach gets hurt? That only trade is off. That's what happened at the trade deadline last year. So we could see Zach Ertz being there, but not being there. In other words, not practicing, just being there so he's not fined. Do you think that's a potential scenario?
Well, if they do that, then clearly, they're going to trade him. I mean, it would be hard for me to just see the Eagles sitting him on the sidelines and not doing anything and kind of putting him in bubble wrap. That would tip their hand that, yeah, we want him out of here. The better solution would just be let him stay in his hotel room and not show up at all. But yeah, he's here. He's not being fined $50,000, but we're just going to keep him in bubble wrap. I mean, they need to come out and admit something. If he's out there and he's participating in all these drills, the 7-on-7s, the 11-on-11s, then you do run that risk of him getting hurt. And then what happens? It's really a game of chicken how he has played all off season long as to who's going to bite first, or who's going to blink first, I should say. Will it be another team that's willing to meet his asking price? Is it unfair to Ertz? He's given so much to this team for the last 8 seasons. Yeah, probably is a little unfair. But listen, it's a business. We're seeing it with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. And we're seeing players report because of this $50,000 fine hanging over their heads. We saw Xavier Howard report in Miami. He's unhappy over his deal, but there he is in camp because he doesn't want to get hit in the head with a $50,000 fine. Same with Deshaun Watson. He has to report to Houston, doesn't want to give up that $50,000 a day. And the same with Zach Ertz. But we'll know early on exactly, I think, what the Eagles' intentions are with Ertz. If they're throwing him out there for every single play and every single snap of practice, then maybe he's going to be a part of this team. I don't know. I mean, it's just really an amazing, bizarre situation with how this has been handled from the start, I think.
And I think I ran this question by Zach Berman when we had him on yesterday. So let me run it by you as well. 2 Eagle draft picks from last year, neither of which contributed much to the 2020 Eagles for varying reasons. But certainly in year number 2, you'd expect them to be more advanced and able to contribute that much more. Davion Taylor, who was taken in the 3rd round at linebacker, and Kayvon Wallace, who was taken in the 4th round at safety. Which of those two is actually going to produce more on the field this year, would you predict?
Oh, boy, I would have to probably say Kayvon Wallace at this point. I think they're going to play him a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage, maybe even kind of a linebacker role, maybe a little bit of what Malcolm Jenkins did, kind of try to play him in different positions. But I think Kayvon Wallace, just based on, the experience he's had in playing the game, Davion Taylor, you wonder what his instincts are like. You wonder what that jump's going to look like year one to year two. I mean, he's a guy that didn't play much high school football because of his Seventh-day Adventist beliefs. Friday nights, they're usually the time they worship, so he couldn't play. And then he goes to a community college. So, I wonder, he's certainly one of the best equipped linebackers they have in terms of the physical skills. He's fast. He can, he's rangy. But what are his instincts like? That takes time to develop. So if I had to pick between who I think is going to get the most snaps, I'm going to have to say Kayvon Wallace at this point. And Davion Taylor, he really has some work ahead of him to get into that rotation. When you look at, Eric Wilson was brought in, Alex Singleton really, splashed on the scene last year. And then, TJ Edwards is still here. So I think he's got a little bit more, leapfrogging to do with players to get onto the field. But Kayvon Wallace, I think there's a path for him to see some snaps.
Linebacker's interesting to me, Ed, because what are we going to see from Jonathan Gannon? Everyone looks to Mike Zimmer in Minnesota. Everybody looks to Matt Eberflus in Indianapolis. And, those guys have Anthony Barr and Eric Kendrick and Darius Leonard, these really athletic, movement-based linebackers. Zimmer, we always he sugars the A gaps. He puts them over the center. You have to stand up the overload blitzes. Maybe Ryan Kerrigan fits in there. Can Alex Singleton and Eric Wilson, who was obviously in Minnesota and made plays, but he also, people don't realize, was really bad against the run. Can they run that type of defense with those two linebackers? Do you almost have to throw a Davion Taylor into the deep end of the pool if you want to play like that?
Yeah, well, throw that on the watch list, because you're right. I don't know how they're going to juggle these linebackers and what they're going to do, and how much time Kerrigan will see, kind of in that stand-up rusher role, line him up over center and, either fake, coming in one of those gaps or back him out. And then you have Jacoby Stevens, who they're trying to make a linebacker out of. And I think Jannard Avery, they're trying to make a linebacker out of. I mean, they're just kind of throwing stuff against the wall here at this point, I think, with the known commodities being Eric Wilson and Alex Singleton and even TJ Edwards. So right there, you have three guys I think that they're going to probably lean on and try to bring Taylor along as camp progresses. I think what's really going to help guys like Davion Taylor and Sean Bradley and, Kayvon Wallace is the preseason games. The first one comes up August 12th. I think, that's really going to benefit these second-year guys who didn't have that experience last year. And, that'll allow them, I think, to grow a little bit faster. And certainly Taylor was a third-round pick. You better hope he grows fast. But right now, I just don't know if there's going to be a role for him early on. He's going to really have to play well through camp and then in the preseason games.
All right, Ed, I've got a watch list question for you as well. Anytime you change coaches, you're going to hear the phrase tossed around, creating a new culture. That's the job of the new coach. He needs to change the culture. He has to have his own culture. We have to find out what his culture is going to be. We start to get inklings the first time he steps in front of a mic when he's introduced. With this head coach, it wasn't necessarily an award-winning performance, but he has certainly improved since. You guys got to get a little bit of a glimpse at some of the off-season, non-mandatory work that the Eagles got in, more competitions and fun than actual football work, but it starts in earnest tomorrow. What are the things you're going to be watching for that is going to tell you what kind of culture the Eagles are trying to put in place with this new Nick Sirianni staff?
Well, I think commanding the team, and his presence in front of the team is going to be very important. And we saw a little of that in the spring where, yeah, he seemed to have the players' attentions, and the players certainly talked about that when we got to talk to them on Zoom. I talked to Jason Kelsey down in Sea Isle City when he was the guest bartender there on June 30th. We talked about Sirianni quite a bit, and Kelsey usually doesn't sugarcoat things, and he likes the approach. Now, he brought up a good point is, what's he going to be like when adversity strikes? What's that culture? Will that culture be able to kind of cement itself where they can overcome adversity rather seamlessly, in terms of injuries, maybe guys carping about playing time, that kind of thing. But, there is going to be adversity. It's all well and good to do your competition mantra, your rock, paper, scissors, your free throw shooting, ping pong games, whatever it is. But, what's his in-game adjustments going to look like once that happens? How is he going to coach the game? That to me is very important. And as far as the culture goes, I just think he needs to kind of be able to act like a leader in front of the team. And I think we've seen that. He wants guys to play for each other. He doesn't want any selfishness on this team. He wants these guys to bond together. So when they're kind of in this foxhole, so to speak, that they'll play for each other. I think that's what the culture that he wants to instill is, and that's well and good. But let's see if he can coach. Let's see if he can make adjustments. Let's see. His staff, what can they do? I want to see Brian Johnson working with Jalen Hurts and trying to develop him, the quarterback coach. And we saw Nick Sirianni in the spring kind of go to the different positions. He was with the running backs, he was with the receivers, he was with the quarterbacks. He was all over the place with the different position groups. And I like that. I like when a coach is involved in every single position and not just kind of anchored to the quarterback position. He's going to have a big say in what the quarterbacks do and the plays they run, but I like that he's involved. He's with every position group, so he knows exactly what's going on with each player and each position group. I think that's going to be a thing too, is he's going to show that he cares about these players. In turn, you hope that they care enough about him to play hard for him week in and week out, practice in, practice out every single day.
All right, devil's advocate to that, Ed. Your quarterback is a second-year player with 4 career starts. You have a history with quarterbacks. He's coached quarterbacks, and I'm talking about Nick Sirianni. He's an offensive guy. He was brought in to be an offensive head coach, obviously a play caller. Shouldn't he be anchored to the young quarterback? Shouldn't he do everything humanly possible to get Jalen Hurts? Because let's be honest, that's the most important part of it all. And we have a lot of uncertainty at the most important position.
Yeah, see, to me, a good coach is someone that delegates and who trusts his assistants. And, yeah, it's important for him to be part of what's going on with the quarterbacks. And he very well will be, I'm sure, behind the scenes in the meeting rooms, in the film room, whatever it is. But on the field, I kind of like when he turns it over to Brian Johnson and Shane Steichen to kind of work what they're supposed to be working on. He needs to trust those guys. He needs to delegate authority to those guys. And that allows him time to move around the position groups, because an offense is like this great symphony. You need all 11 parts working in unison to make it run. It's not just about one guy. Yeah, it's an important position, the quarterback, but you need to know, the receivers need to know where they're going on the field. They need to know how to run routes. It's something that really kind of we didn't see a lot of development at that position the last few years. So, I have no problem with him working his way around to these different position groups, because I think he needs to be involved in all aspects so he knows what's going on. But then behind the scenes, let me get with the quarterbacks. Let me develop play calls. But I'm going to do that in concert with Shane Steichen, with Brian Johnson, with Aaron Moorhead, with Jason Michael, my tight end coach. You're going to work with Jeff Stoutland. You're going to work with all those coaches. But on the field, let those guys do their jobs and teach and mold these guys while you kind of oversee the whole operation.
All right, Ed, here's one of my concerns for this upcoming season, and you tell me whether it's meritorious or not. And it's not something I'm concerned about with tomorrow or the day after or the first week of practice or the preseason. It doesn't really kick in until the season itself kicks in and they start playing on Sundays games that count. And that's the quarterback, Jalen Hurts. As John has pointed out, we have Brendan Lee Gouton on earlier. He certainly stated, I tried to tie him down. I couldn't even do it. To find out what Jalen Hurts needs to accomplish to do here in this year so that McMullen, McDonald, and Kracz stop talking about Deshaun Watson? That we're not constantly coming on and say, did you see the game that Sam Howell had for North Carolina this year? Oh, my God, the Eagles are going to have a high pick, and I'd love to see him in Midnight Green. We all know what Jalen is facing coming into this year. We just don't know what he's going to need to accomplish to be the starting quarterback in 2022. He's got his own thoughts on that. Is there any chance that Jalen Hurts is going to try and do too much? Knowing that here's the bar that he's got to get above and beyond to be the Eagle quarterback going forward, that this truly is a prove-it type year for him, will he attempt to do too much? You can do that with a quarterback who's ready to pull it down and take off and try and run for 25. Is that something Eagle fans should be worried about going into the year? Jalen Hurts knows he's on the clock, and he's going to try and speed up the clock as best he can.
I mean, it's a legitimate concern, that he tries to do too much. No doubt about it. We haven't even met Jalen Hurts. He's been on this team now over a year, and none of us have met him face to face or seen how he interacts with his teammates in a locker room situation. Very small snippets of it on the field. We saw it last year a little bit in those 4 starts. But yeah, I think there's a danger of that for sure. But Hurts seems like a really mellow dude, man. I mean, he looks like he's just kind of, he leads by example. I don't think he does put that kind of pressure on himself. He comes from a football family. His father was a head coach. So I think there's a danger of it, but I don't think Hurts will do that. And what's going to constitute giving Hurts another contract or letting him start in 2022. I think it comes down to, what it always does, wins and losses. I think that Eagles have a pretty good offense in place around him. And now he has to make that offense work and put points on the board. If he's averaging 24 points a game and they're losing games 31-24, then, maybe that's not his fault. It's the defense's fault. But I think wins is going to be a big part of how they factor in whether Hurts is the answer. And I also think his touchdown to interception ratio, I think he needs to limit his turnovers, his fumbles. I think he needs to show good poise in the pocket, make plays when they're there, throw the ball away when they're not, and just kind of manage the game as best he can. Little nuanced things like that, I think, are going to be the telltale sign as to whether Hurts is the answer. But I think the one that's most, glaring and the one we can see is wins and losses. That's going to, I think, be the biggest benchmark for Jalen Hurts going forward. How many wins he can squeeze out of this team in 2021.
So, Ed, what if that benchmark is average? What if it's 8 wins? What if it's 9 wins? What if the numbers are average? They're not bad. They're not good. We know how Jeffrey Lurie values this position. We know it. I mean, he says he wants to build an elite passing offense. That's what he's about. And by the way, he's right. That's what the modern NFL is about. I've asked this of you. I've asked it of a lot of people. Now we're on the eve of training camp. I'm going to ask it again. Is there anything outside of just blowing everybody away that can turn Jeffrey Lurie away from saying, we got to get a quarterback. We got to get a Deshaun Watson. If not a Deshaun Watson, a Sam Howell, or whoever's going to be at the top of the draft. Spencer Rattler. You know how this team respects Lincoln Riley. I guarantee you Lincoln Riley's going to be in their ear saying, hey, Spencer Rattler's pretty stinking good. Can Jalen Hurts do anything to not be a placeholder for this team other than win 12 games?
Well, I think there will be other factors than the wins and losses. What if the Eagles win 8 games? They're 8-9, and Jalen Hurts has 28 touchdown passes, 6 rushing, and 10 interceptions. That's pretty good. I think even if he wins 12 games, I think this team's going to draft a quarterback next year. I mean, they almost have to bring in some more competition other than Joe Flacco and Nick Mullins. I think that they will go quarterback in the first round. I'm not sure they'll trade for Watson or Aaron Rodgers, whatever, if they sign him as a free agent. I mean, Aaron Rodgers will be 38 years old at the end of this year. what does he have left? But to me, I would still take a quarterback no matter how successful or unsuccessful Hurts is. I would still look at a Sam Howell or Rattler or this kid from USC. I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks. We'll have to wait and see how these fall Saturdays go. But I would watch and I would pay attention and I would talk about these quarterbacks all fall long, no matter how Hurts is doing, because I think they're going to grab one to kind of bring in and compete with Hurts, no matter what kind of season he has. Now, if he falls flat on his face, then maybe you start to look at maybe trading for Deshaun Watson, someone that can come in right away and win games for this team, or an Aaron Rodgers or whoever is out there. But I think he would have to fall flat on his face for them to do that. I know the Eagles have been connected with Watson. I think it would be a mistake to bring him in at the cost that the Texans are currently looking for. I think you just go with Hurts and you try to find benchmarks that he can meet and milestones that he can achieve to determine his success. What will success look like? I'm not even sure Nick Sirianni will know the answer to that when we ask him.
All right, Eddie, last one for me, and it might be the most important question you field over the next 24, 48, 72 hours. Going to have key grass time tomorrow. McMullen has already admitted he's going to wear some kind of coaching coat or sleeveless thing.
Oh, no.
No.
He's going to try and dress like a coach. He's going to try and look like a coach on the sidelines, and he's going to be sweating like a stuck pig. But I'm guesstimating here.
Where do you get coaching coach?
What
I don't even know what that is.
What'd you call it earlier in the show?
You know those Ed, those batting practice shorts.
Batting practice.
Everybody wears them. That's
right. When he says
all the
everybody,
coaches
the coaches he's referring to. So they're coaching coach. I just made that up.
I'm probably
he's got a batting practice thing on.
I'm probably going to break that out day one until I go T-shirt day two, and from that point forward. That's all I said.
So he's going with a batting practice sleeveless jacket tomorrow, like a stuck pig. He's going to be sweating.
Everybody sweats like a stuck pig. That's part of it.
So you don't want to be next to McMullen. You don't want to be behind Brandon Lee Gowton because you won't see a damn thing.
Right.
Is there anyone that you will sidle up next to, either for space purposes or conversational purposes? Do you think you might actually be able to get something above and beyond what your eyes are telling you about the Eagles? Someone who you bantered back and forth with in these workout type situations before that you've seen has given you some insight and or ways to play.
By the way, everybody's gone. No, everybody's gone.
Yeah. It's going to be a whole new sideline. But, look, Zach Berman, I like sidling up to him. He's very knowledgeable. Plus, he's very short, so he's easy to see over if you're looking at height. Yeah. But Zach's great, very knowledgeable, sees things that I don't always see. I like to pick a lot of guys' brains when I'm on the sideline because you can't see everything. You're watching what you're watching, but you might not be seeing what's going on to your left or your right. So you like to talk to as many people as you can. So there's really not one person. But now that I know John's wearing this, these non-whisking batting practice vests, I might steer clear. And I was always told, listen, don't be part of the story, John. You don't want to be part of the story. And if you wear that,
that's Jody.
Pictures and videos,
trust me,
posting it on social media.
Trust me, it's not going to stand out. It is not stand out. I can't believe you guys don't know what I'm talking about. They're very common.
I can't even believe that I can't even believe you have your outfit already picked out that you're going to wear to the first day.
I don't have it picked out. I said probably that's the way I'm going to go. Jody runs with that. He takes the baton. You know why he took that baton? Because he couldn't take his victory lap over Landon Dickerson. I told him for weeks and weeks and weeks, Landon would be there for the first practice. So he had to go a different route. I respect him for that, for going down and trying to go a different route.
Yeah, poke a little fun. That's why we love having Kracz on, because he laughs both with us and at us when given the chance. Eddie, good stuff. Thanks for hopping on, buddy. Again, as I keep my distance from John tomorrow. 2 reasons why. Number one, he's going to have on the sweaty coat. And number two, he's got a bum shoulder. If you bump him, he's going to blame you when he goes on the IL.
I'm not wearing a coat when it's 94 degrees. I guarantee you I'm not wearing a coat. I can't guarantee that I'll even be allowed down there, but that's another story.
Yeah. Well, listen, if you do, John, it's going to go viral because I will tweet out pictures and video.
I'm gonna wear a parka in July in South Philadelphia.
Need to see that video.
I would love to see that. Yeah.
Eddie Kracz here with us on Birds 365, and sure we'll have you up again soon enough. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, guys.
Ed Kracz here with us on Birds 365. All right, coming back, and what are we going to do? We're going to put a bow on the show.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.